5:36 p.m. I would like to call our work session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels. Ms. Green.
Present.
Mr. Lawson.
Here.
Mr. Majors.
Here.
Ms. Rose.
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Present.
Ms. Bowers.
Present, thank you. Okay, our sole order of business this evening will come from the Budget and Finance Committee. So I will defer to our Budget and Finance Committee Chair, Vice President Green.
I'm here from the administration to kind of get everything.
Sorry, Usher, one more time.
I said, is anyone there from the administration to present?
Yes, Tim Brooks is here and Brian. Oh,
Give us an overview.
please give us an overview.
All right. Good evening, council. Tonight before you is the second proposed.
Excuse me, if you wouldn't mind speaking directly into the microphone.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Good evening, council. Tonight before you is the second proposed budget adjustment or reallocation pertaining to the general fund and the state liquid fuels fund. There's 3 exhibits in this reallocation, exhibit A, B, and C. And the first exhibit under footnote A, it is proposed budget adjustment to transfer vacant position wages to accommodate city engineering consulting needs through the remainder of the year. And ultimately what's happening is we're going to utilize unused vacant position funds through the first quarter of the year to plus up the consulting fund, the consulting line, and the traffic and engineering fund. Ultimately, it'll be a total of $169,000 from the solicitor's office, the finance office, the grants management office, the IT department, the codes department, traffic and engineering, and then the vehicle maintenance center, all of which combines to $169,000, which will be transferred to the traffic and engineering consulting line. Footnote B is for proposed budget adjustment to accommodate the Second Street project for construction asphalt overage permitted by PennDOT. Ultimately, what happened here is PennDOT allowed us to use state liquid fuels funds for an asphalt overage on a construction project, the Second Street construction project. So instead of using general fund, we opted to use state liquid fuels fund because it was permissible. This here shows the accounting involved with that. Moving $129,341 to the state streets and roads, state liquid fuels, and plussing up the estimated cash carryover, which is an asset account, an additional $129,341. That is exhibit A and the information on there. Any questions?
Council members, are there any questions?
Thank you. I was having trouble getting off of mute. If we can start with if anyone has any questions.
So yes, Chair Green, I do have a question. With respect to the consulting change, I understand we're moving the money to do that. Is this for a specific consultant or just for that consultant line? Is this for our contract with Dawood, or is this just for any consulting fees that may arise?
Good evening, council. That would be for the Dawood contract that we currently have.
And this is for the, I know we have a number of relationships with Dawood. This is for the overall engineering services contract.
Yes, sir.
So then, I don't know if this is for you, Tim or not, then what's the all-in amount for the 2023 budget with Dalwood for that contract? And if we're adding an additional 169?
In 2023, on the engineering consulting line, it was originally budgeted for $75,000. To this point, or till April 30th of this year, it was about $53,000 spent. Thus, requesting $169,000 should bring us to about a $222,000 annual spend for the consulting line. And what we conceived through engineering reports and information that we have been provided is that the annual spend would be about that 18.5 divided by 12. I mean, times 12, which should get us to the 222,000.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see anyone else from the administration that could answer the other question with respect to, I know we were in the process of trying to onboard a city engineer. But I don't know if anyone can speak to where we are in
I
that
can speak on
process. Okay,
We do have a candidate that we'll be interviewing this week for the in-house engineer.
okay. All right, thank you. No further questions at this time. President Bowers and Vice President Gray.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has any questions regarding Exhibit A?
Yes, I have a question, Vice President Green. I wanted to follow up on the status of the city engineer. So if we are increasing this appropriation through the end of the year, what is the expectation should this candidate move forward with the hiring process?
I think we would still need some consulting, even though we would get an in-house engineer, because he would, need to get his feet wet once he does get here on all the projects that the consultant has been handling for the city. So he wouldn't, be able to just jump right in and take right over on all of those.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just saying if we expect that this person is a viable candidate and they will then be hired, I guess I'm just confused as to why we would fund Dawood through the end of the year. Why would that be necessary at this rate, plus the city engineer's salary, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's more of a backup. I mean, we don't really know who's going to show up. So once he goes through the interview process, we hope that he's what we're looking for. But if he's not, we're going to still have to continue with Dalwood.
And at least I could answer, you have a resolution pending before you to increase a reallocation on the contract side to approve
Right.
the contract. And there was an administrative confusion, and maybe that's my office, I don't know. But the resolution was to make it $150,000 without a reallocation.
Yes.
But the budget item was only 75. So we typically fund a contract through the end of the year. If it's through end of the year, it doesn't mean you have to spend it. But in order to have the contract that runs that period of time, you have to have an appropriation to match it.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarity. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 75,000 was with the anticipation that we were hiring someone,
Who then
correct?
walked away in
Right,
January.
exactly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying and thank
Yes.
you for your responses. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has any questions or comments?
I just have one question, just, Mr. Grover, then with the contract, are we contracted with the consultant for the year, or is it as services used?
Well, both. There's this expiration date on the contract before it has to come back to council again. So it's both, but it's not an obligation that they're being paid that money. It's still being billed within that contract appropriation. So if, example, we lucked out and got, a tremendous experienced municipal urban engineer in here in July, the need for that other contract would decrease as they got up to speed on projects, and the outside contract didn't have to work on the various projects. But until you're there, it's funded to the end of the year. So
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I would just say, I'm glad that we do have someone in the pipeline. Hopefully it is a viable candidate and it works out. Because it seems like the engineering costs, going with the firm continue to just balloon. Every time we think that we kind of have an idea, it seems like it's another reallocation coming and the cost just keeps going up. And so that's all that I have for now.
All right, well, I'm going to pass things over to Brian McCutcheon, the accounting manager, for him to elaborate on exhibits B and C.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President Bowers, Chair Green. Thank you. Before I move to Exhibit B, just a quick comment on Exhibit A that relates to the Liquid Fuels Fund. Just so you're aware, that proposed amendment of 129,341 that has been submitted and approved by PennDOT because the involved expenditures for the Second Street project are permissible or eligible under the Liquid Fuels Fund, and that this extra amount was it materialized from a change order amount that created an overage over the original contract with the contractor JVI Group. So just wanted to add that little clarification. I'll move to Exhibit B, which is the most involved schedule on this proposed reallocation. And this is an exercise the city has typically gone through year in and year out historically, where at the end of the previous year, there are always open encumbrance balances, commitments that really represent unfinished business at the end of the prior year, meaning the encumbrances have been created and the cash has been encumbered, but there's been no expenditure of such. So the expense doesn't run through the books because the encumbrance is still open at the end of the year. It's still open and it gets further reviewed and evaluated if it's needed. And we have done that and determined that the roll forward is necessary to bring this into current year 2023. And just to give you a little history, for example, in the general fund, over the previous several years, going back to 2019, our open encumbrances were 2 million. 2020, they were 2.6 million. 2021, it was very large. It was 4.5 million. And this time we're asking for this roll forward of 2.3. And up on the screen, and I believe you have this handout as well. It's in the fund order, starting with the general fund, going down through all those lines that represent the city's various budget units and departments. And again, for the general fund, it's not quite 2.3 million. And to fund that or source that with, again, I mentioned the cash was encumbered in the prior year. So we're utilizing that beginning cash balance to balance this this budget adjustment. Liquid fuels is on here as well because of its involvement in recent years with streets and roads projects. There's 883,000 request. Same thing, source it or fund it with beginning of year cash. The Neighborhood Services Fund as well, $439,300. Some history on this. We again, open encumbrances, the balances from recent years have ranged. They've come down actually in the Neighborhood Services Fund from approximately 1 million down to where they are now with this ask at 439,000. And the last fund on here, which is the Fire Protection Fund. And this is one item that relates to the tanker pumper that is ready to be placed in service, which was encumbered in the prior year with Seagrave fire apparatus. Same thing, using sourcing it with beginning of year cash. Now, there's a lot of detail on this schedule, and what I thought would be good to do is what I have up on the screen now. These are more of the material items. And because there's so much account detail and numbers, this on the previous schedule, this gives you an idea of what exactly some of these material items are. Again, for the general fund, the total being requested is 2.3 million. But you can see that the more significant items, including Tyler Technologies for our ERP. There's Bureau of Fire on here as well. The biggest thing is again, Seagrave for the fire pumper tanker. Traffic and engineering, there is a bucket truck from prior year encumbrance. And Harrisburg wall and floor for flooring, carpeting for both the city government center and the public safety building. Lastly, there's been much activity and upgrade with security and safety systems for various locations. That's Low V Systems, the vendor. A State Liquid Fuels Fund, that is all streets and roads. And two main projects here, including State Street, and the vendor is Kinsley and Allison Hill Paving, and that includes Shiloh Paving and our the engineering firm that's involved with that project on the design side. Neighborhood services, two of the more material items relate to demolition and clearing from emergency occurrences. The vendors are Kemar and Empire Wrecking. And also Graybill is on there for the sanitation packer. And as I mentioned previously, Seagrave. There's a sharing on this particular encumbrance. There's a breakdown between the general fund and the fire protection fund that are accommodating this purchase. Comments, questions on Exhibit 2? Sorry, Exhibit B.
Does anybody have any questions? Also, there's no questions then. Councilwoman Green.
Okay, thank you. Is that the end of the presentation or is there more?
I couldn't quite make
He
that.
asked if there's more.
Yeah, that's the extent of the roll forward. Yes.
Thank you.
And again, we anticipate, again, come the end of this year, I would expect to see a similar thing where we'll have what we budget for, what we anticipate to actually expense and spend. Chances are there's still going to be a significant amount of open encumbrances, and that would impact next year's budget in a similar way.
All right, thank you. I guess I just have one question. What's the main reason why this is coming down later than it normally does? I think you might have kind of already touched on it, but if you could just elaborate a little bit.
Yes, that's very accurate, and that I'll take the view or the responsibility on that. We normally do that. Your recall on this is correct, Chair Green, that we try to do this as early as we can, late February or early March to get it where it needs to be. I think for my case, the impact mainly has been trying to work through our financial audit and then also deal with the new Tyler system. So It's something I've been tracking though, of course, to get us to where we are this evening. But those are the two primary delays, and also trying to get that worked into the delegation process with Tim on the budget manager side.
All right, thank you very much. And before I close it, are there any other questions? Anyone come up with anything before I recommend this move on to the next agenda or move on for a vote?
No, there are no questions.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing none, then I would recommend this is moved on to the next legislative agenda.
Chair Green, we're through exhibits A and B. We just have one more, and it's very small. If I can move to exhibit C.
Okay, so then if you could present exhibit C, then thank you.
All right, I have that up on the screen, and this is very straightforward, I believe. And working with the Law Bureau's review, there is reasonableness in requesting an increase to our liability settlement claims line for current year. The proposed ask is 400,000 to increase the budget, available budget, up to 527,500. What's good about this, and as far as sourcing it, we're not recommending sourcing it with beginning of year cash, mainly because our interest income line in the general fund, this impacts the general fund, both lines, of course. We budgeted very conservatively based on recent years' experience of interest rates being extremely low. Then, as you know, as we moved into this year, there have been a lot of effects from interest rates steadily rising, with the Fed making various increases to fight off inflation. As a result, even going into May, we've already achieved approximately 390,000. This schedule is as of the end of April, which is showing the actual interest income of 315. But we're pushing 400,000 already for the 5 months through May. So I think it's reasonable to expect we can increase our revenue budget line and for interest up to where we need to accommodate this ask for liability settlement claims that are still anticipated for the rest of the year. Any comments or questions on that?
Thank you. I don't have any questions on this. Are there any questions from my colleagues?
There are none.
All right, saying none, thank you very much for being here tonight, and thank you for the presentation. I would recommend this moves on for a vote.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vice President Green. At this time, we will move forward with our agenda. We will open the floor for public comment. Just a few housekeeping notes. As always, you'll have 2 minutes to share your public comment. Please state your name and your address for the record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live. Mr. Truesdale will serve as our timekeeper. I'll begin to my far right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one. Anyone in the middle section? Okay. Seeing and hearing no one. Anyone to my left?
Hello, my name is Becca Smith and I live on the Hill. As a concerned social worker, a dedicated resident of Harrisburg, and someone who has been actively providing harm reduction supplies to Harrisburg's multiple unhoused communities over the past 2 years, it deeply troubles me to witness the continued evictions of my unhoused neighbors. First and foremost, I urge you to ensure that any evictions of individuals on private property, starting with the Greenbelt camp, go through the landlord and the MDJ, not the city. Furthermore, I strongly demand that permanent land be provided to unhoused individuals, allowing them to remain in designated areas equipped with basic amenities such as clean water, sanitation facilities, and healthcare services. As a service provider, it has become increasingly difficult to locate and care for people as they're continually forced to move. When Mulberry Street was evicted, we were told that within about 6 weeks, folks would be able to return to that location. However, that was 4 months ago. Maybe Mulberry Street could be this permanent location for them. In addition, it is crucial that the City Council prioritize the development of unhoused services with a trauma-informed, housing first, and low barrier to entry focus. Mayor Williams' ARPA plan includes no funding to address our need for housing. This must change. Further, many individuals experiencing homelessness face complex challenges related to trauma, mental health, addiction, and systemic barriers. Shelters and transitional housing options are often realistic for everyone due to the large amounts of rules and regulations. More accessible options need to be a priority. I urge you to prioritize the protection and well-being of our unhoused community members by taking immediate and compassionate action. Let us work together to create a city that upholds the principles of empathy, safety, and dignity for all of our residents. By embracing collaborative solutions and engaging the diversity of experiences, expertise, and voices, we can foster an inclusive and compassionate society where no one is pushed out. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my left that would like to offer public comment?
Hello, Rachel Goad. I live at Graham Street up in Riverside neighborhood. And I'm going to echo some of the points that were just made. When I heard about the eviction of folks from the Greenbelt, I was really disheartened to hear that. Folks were just being asked to move along again. Comes on the heels of the Mulberry Street Bridge eviction and folks being pushed out very quickly with a promise that they could come back. And also on the heels of the church where folks once also made their homes. And I think we really need to have some long-term planning and prioritizing of folks who are in this critical need of housing. Continuing to make folks move along when we decide it's unsightly, when it's inconvenient, is inhumane, I think really incompatible with how we should be as a city. So I would also echo the possibility of return to Mulberry Street. That space has continued to be completely vacant. The rats, as far as I can tell, the rat procedures have been undergone, and now the fence, the vegetation is just growing up inside the fence. I don't know how one would evaluate if there were rats there any further. And I also want to echo that there's no money in being allocated from the ARPA funding that we were given towards this ongoing crisis. And I would really urge you all to think deeply about that and work with the many providers in the city who are trying to meet the needs of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. The time is 6:04 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn our work session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Thank you. We stand adjourned. Please note, prior to our special legislative session, Harrisburg City Council will host an executive session. So we will excuse ourselves momentarily. Patients, just to note, Harrisburg City Council hosted an executive session that began at about 6:05 and we ended momentarily. Going to review our legislative session agenda, and then we can call the meeting to order and begin. I'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Truesdale will lead the roll call. The invocation this evening will be led by Councilwoman Rawls, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilwoman Daniels. For communications this evening, we will be joined by Dr. Kamika Campbell, Vice President and Founder of Juneteenth HBG 2023. Then we will open the floor for courtesy of the floor, followed by reports of committee. The sole committee report this evening will come from Vice President Green on behalf of the Budget and Finance Committee. Yes, we can hear you. On the work session of May 30th, 2023. We have one resolution, Resolution 42 of 2023, which we will vote upon. Is there any old business, council members? Okay, any new business? Okay, and then we will adjourn. So it's 6:44 p.m. I would like to call our special legislative session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels,
Here.
Ms. Green, Mr. Lawson,
Here.
Mr. Majors,
Here.
Ms. Rawls,
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Present.
Ms. Bowers.
Present. Like the record to reflect that Vice President Green is joining us via Zoom. The invocation will be led by Councilwoman Rawls. Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just want to take a moment for us to take a moment of silence. There's a lot going on, not just in our city, but in the world. So just being able to take a moment to reflect on that and ask for peace and understanding. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilwoman Daniels. Councilwoman Daniels. Thank you, Councilwoman Daniels. We will now move to communications. Again, we will be joined by Dr. Kamika Campbell, Vice President and Founder of Juneteenth HBG 2023.
Good evening, everyone. I would first like to extend our many thanks on behalf of Young Professionals of Color, Greater Harrisburg, and the Juneteenth HBG Collective for having us here this evening. We are very excited about our slate of events that we have had. We've been curating over the last 8 months for Juneteenth HBG. Juneteenth HBG is a collective, collaborative among many different, this year over 20 different community leaders in the Greater Harrisburg area. We are very proud to be partnered with so many different entities across the region. We are just Sunday was our last pre-Juneteenth event. In the month of May, we hosted several walking tours to tell folks about the wonderful history that exists here, right here where we're standing in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, regarding both the emancipation in the state of Pennsylvania and how it connects on that 85-year journey towards freedom ending in Galveston, Texas in 1865. We had our homeownership workshops, Renaissance workshops that ended this past weekend. On Saturday, where we are granting $500 in closing cost assistance to our completers, the folks who completed that program. We also we finished on Sunday evening as well, the State of Black Economics workshops, where we helped curate over 15 different small business owners and micro business owners throughout the region who will be vending at Juneteenth HBG throughout our different events for our week. And last and definitely not least, for our May events, we had our Roots and Foods Day, where we were teaching the community not just about why cleaning up is important, but how trash and refuse affects our water supply, and when we want to grow our food and other quality of life issues in the city. So we're very proud to say we had over 120 participants throughout the month of May in those programs. And that month is usually centered around education and different workshops to help folks come together to understand the point of why we want to talk about Juneteenth HBG in the city of Harrisburg. And that is a return of economic resources, access, and basically just I guess a pathway, economic pathways and resource pathways back into the Black and Brown communities. And coming up for the month of June, our week events start. We have a kind of an extended week. Our Juneteenth week schedule starts on June the 10th. We start at HAC and the Civil War Museum with our Juneteenth HBG conference. We will be hosting the one, the only Mark Lamont Hill at the Civil War Museum for our keynote. And we have a slate of amazing regional speakers that will be joining us during the day, starting at 11 a.m. We have 10 a.m. for registration and breakfast. Please join us. We would love to have you all there. We also have an interfaith church service that will be hosted by Pastor Trey DuPont at Greater Zion Missionary Baptist Church, where we'll be celebrating Black liberation theology and what that means in the Juneteenth landscape. We'll have Topics Tuesday, which is an open forum at Hurston Manor, which is the YPOC house, to talk about Juneteenth, talk about what it means for the community, and talk about what's coming up for the rest of the week. On Wednesday, we will have the Black Performance Arts Showcase at the first Black-owned theater in the city of Harrisburg, Narcisse Theater, located on Chestnut Street. Next, we will have the Evolution, the Revision of Black Art Expo, which will be at one of our partner locations, the Susquehanna Art Museum. And that will be hosted from doors open at 6:30 p.m. And many of these events are free and open to the public. The only two nominal costs that we have are $5 and $10, but you get a return to that. So you can get one of these awesome t-shirts that I'm modeling for you this evening. And you can take those costs right back into that. For the end of the week, we will be also participating with UPMC, one of our Emerald sponsors, for their UPMC Healthy Harrisburg kickoff at Soldiers Grove on June 17th. We'll be partnering with HYP this year to have our Juneteenth at Sip at Soma. So we're very excited about that on the 16th. And last but definitely not least, Juneteenth Summer of Soul concert celebrating 50 years of hip hop this year. And it's going to be an old school R&B showcase. So we're having something for everyone that evening. On Sunday, family-friendly event will be happening back at our partner location HAC for Juneteenth Jubilee. We will be there on June 18th from 12 p.m. And then to wind everything down, on the date of Juneteenth, on the 19th, we'll be having a press conference with the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus on June 19th on the K. Leroy Irvis lawn at 10:30 a.m. So we do want folks to come out. Our motto this and last year was one city, one team, one economic impact. Last year, we were able to service over 3,000 participants throughout the season. We had 11 states represented. We had over 50 zip codes, 22 different townships, and 8 different counties. So we are making sure that our footprint is large, and also talking about the amazing things that are happening in the region with the Black and Brown professionals, with Black and Brown entrepreneurs, and with all those who support of the events. And the last but not least thing is we need you. So even if you can't make it to Juneteenth this year, we want you to be a part of YPOC. Young Professionals of Color Greater Harrisburg is for, of course, to help create community for the Black and Brown Professional Collective. And that includes everyone who honors and values Black and Brown professionals in the community. Please come out and support. We would love to see all of you there. And I thank you for your time and letting us talk a little bit about Juneteenth HBG. We hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to courtesy of the floor. Similar instructions. Please note you'll have 2 minutes to share your comment. Please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live. Mr. Truesdale will serve as our timekeeper. We'll begin to our far right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, anyone in the middle section? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, anyone to my left? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, we will move forward with our agenda. Next, we have reports of committee. The sole committee report will be from Chair Green on behalf of the Budget and Finance Committee on the work session of May 30th, 2023. Vice President Green, can you hear me?
Thank you, President Bowers. For the work session of May 30th, 2023, we had a presentation of budget reallocation from the Budget and Finance Department. They went over the different items, including encumbrances from the previous year, settlements. And then they also talked about funds needed to increase to the engineering budget, and that they will be pulling from positions that haven't been filled throughout the year. We did have questions from council members regarding the total amount that would be for the year for the engineering budget. And for the most part, I think that I can support this reallocation. I will ask all of my council members to support it as well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Vice President Green. We have one resolution for consideration. That's Resolution 42 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 42, 2023, a resolution approving the second proposed 2023 operations related budget reallocation in order to reclassify certain allocations and authorize the roll forward of certain 2022 budget year commitments.
Thank you. Council members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns related to Resolution 42 of 2023? Okay, seeing and hearing none, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels? Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Rawls?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Resolution 42, 2023 passes by a vote of 6-1.
Thank you very much. Council members, at this time, I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules for reconsideration of a resolution. Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. We would like to take a moment to reconsider Resolution 35 of 2023. I believe council is present for this resolution. Is that accurate? Okay, if you wouldn't mind joining us. Just as a reminder, please speak directly into the microphone so that you can be heard. Thank you.
Good evening. Ambrose Hines from Stevens and Lee. I believe the action item is a reconsideration of the resolution that this council voted on last week. And the request here is simply to reconsider that resolution denying the denial of the resolution to allow for additional time to meet with members of council and see if we can come to some resolution on the issues that the council presented previously.
Thank you. Our interest would be to, should everyone be agreeable, move forward with a continuance for 30 days. That would relieve our deemed approved deadline, I believe.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you. So are you agreeable if you could please state yes,
but
just for the meeting record.
Certainly, we've communicated that in writing. We are agreeable to an extension of that time period for 30 days until the 30th of June.
Who did you send that to?
To the solicitor, I believe.
I am the solicitor. I haven't seen it. That's what I'm
I
asking.
apologize. I have a copy here.
Okay.
Is directed to you.
I just haven't seen it, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, I would like to entertain a motion to resume our legislative session to take action on.
So move.
Is there a second? I'm sorry.
Could we just get clarification on the language of that we will be using, since it's not exactly an overturning?
Sure. So the motion to reconsider is that you are moving to reconsider your vote from last week. What that does, if that is carried by a majority of council, it basically eliminates the vote from last week. And then it would require a revote on the resolution. The agreement is that there would be a continuance for 30 days before that had to happen, so that council and the applicant can confer on what might satisfy the parties to resolve differences regarding this application. Does that satisfy what you're looking for, Madam Chair? Sure.
Any other questions or comments before we resume our legislative session? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to return to the special legislative session. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are entering back into our special legislative session. This time I will entertain a formal motion to reconsider Resolution 35 of 2023.
So moved.
Is there a second?
His so moved was the motion.
He
to
did make
reconsider.
the motion.
I
Is-
second that.
Okay. Thank you. Council members, are there any further questions? So just to clarify, this continuance has been submitted to our solicitor in writing for 30 days, and that will lead us to June 30th,
Correct.
just to clarify. Okay, I don't know what that. Okay, are there any other questions, comments, or concerns related to our discussion?
Just one, I guess, one question in terms of process. So we are to take a vote on reconsideration of the vote by which
You denied the application.
we denied the application. Should it be however the vote goes, should it be reconsidered, then we have a continuance, or we have to vote again with a condition for the continuance?
No, you have the continuance by agreement.
Okay.
If you reconsider, that is the scenario. So
Okay,
it's a vote to reconsider with already an agreement to continue the matter. So without either party's rights being impacted by that
Okay.
extension.
and then. Okay.
So it's
and then
simply a vote to
okay.
reconsider eliminates the last
The
vote,
last vote,
puts it back to the status quo.
and then
you
if we have time to have a discussion and then potentially revote again.
Right.
After,
Correct.
okay, all right, thank you.
After the
After
30 days.
30
June
days.
30.
And if you didn't revote, then it would.
It would be deemed approved.
Right. at
Got
that
it.
Yes, we would have
Yes.
missed our deemed
Or deemed
approval
approved
deadline.
Got it.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green. Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rolls,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you.
We look forward to communicating with you soon. Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you.
Council members, is there any old business? Okay, seeing and hearing none, any new business? Okay, seeing and hearing none, the time is 7:03 PM. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.